Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking about Pokemon Legends ZA. We've gotten new footage and details, they have just come out, and this new information is really helping me to finally get excited for Pokemon Legends ZA. Now, I'm getting hyped for this game. It's coming out in just a few short days, we've learned some pretty good stuff, and it's helping to alleviate a lot of my concerns I've had for this game. And I haven't always been concerned about Legends ZA, to be clear. Pokemon Legends Arceus is actually one of my favorite Pokemon games, so I was very hyped and eager to learn more about Legends ZA once we finally got it announced, or even before we got it announced, we had anticipation that they would be announcing something like this. But once they started to actually show gameplay and details, that's where my reservations started to grow, my concerns started to expand. Because I haven't felt like Pokemon Company, Game Freak, Nintendo haven't really sold this game very well. They've shown a lot of things that have certainly been concerning for me, considering some of the recent offerings from Game Freak. But with this latest information, some of those concerns are being alleviated, and I have an optimism that Game Freak here may actually prove themselves with Legends ZA, which is what we're going to be getting into today. Do you find yourself feeling tired, unable to take a good nap during the day from wherever you may be? Then perhaps you are in need of a soft, comfortable sleep mask that blocks out all light. Fortunately, Manta Sleep, the sponsor for today's video, has just that, a quality sleep mask. This sleep mask has super soft, comfy cushions that cover your eyes and block out all light. It's easy to adjust to different sizes, and it feels great to wear, and it's helped me personally fit in just a bit more rest during my days. So if you're looking to improve your sleep and energy, check out the Manta Sleep Mask using the link in the description below with my code SLEEPRESTART. So before getting into this new info, let me expand a bit on my concerns about Legends ZA, because as I said, I very much enjoyed Legends Arceus. It's one of my favorite Pokemon games. And that's for several reasons. There's a big focus on exploration, there's a lot more challenge, the story is interesting, there are some deeper, darker concepts there, and there's really a lot to enjoy. And it's a new, refreshing experience. And I actually liked the art style, by the way. Now, taking a look at Legends ZA, it's set in Lumio City, just a city, it's not a whole bunch of different, really vast environments to explore. And so there's been some concerns there. Will the sense of adventure and exploration be hampered? And then considering the environment, the aesthetics, the visuals, they look pretty simple. There hasn't been that much variety to the environment, and so that's also been concerning. Will this game hold up visually? Will it actually be aesthetically pleasing? And there have been some parts that I've seen that are aesthetically pleasing, but others that look pretty simplistic. Like we look at the buildings, and there's a lot of flat textures. The windowsills don't appear to have much depth. And this concerns me beyond just the graphics, but also the gameplay, because if we're looking at some pretty flat textures here for the buildings, that then has me wondering, are these buildings interactive? Can we go into them? And I'm not left with much reason to expect we can, because with recent Pokemon offerings, there's been a lot of buildings, and most of them you can't go inside of, which has also been an issue I've had with the most recent Pokemon generations. In prior Pokemon generations, the good old days, you can go into pretty much every single building. There would be a character there, perhaps multiple, items to find. There were things in those buildings that would expand upon the story and the lore, different quests you can unlock, items and Pokemon you can obtain, and simply cool characters to talk to. Most of that has been done away with inside buildings because you can't go inside buildings anymore. And so there's a lot less to find and enjoy from that perspective. But then also, it's immersion breaking, because if you can't go into these buildings, that's a reminder that this is simply a game in a game that's lacking in details. It's something that's pretty distracting from the experience. And then there's the recently announced paid DLC. This has concerned many people because it's left many people wondering, well, the game hasn't even come out yet, and here they are announcing paid DLC. Does this mean that there's some cut content here? Is there actually going to be like a healthy post-game with the base package? Is this going to feel like a full, proper, complete Pokemon experience? Or are we going to be left feeling like we need to pay more to get the full experience here? Now, in general, I'm pretty trusting with Nintendo products and their DLC, but I will say with a lot of recent Pokemon offerings, I have felt like the post-game has left something to be desired. So if that happens again, and we have this DLC that's already available for purchase before the game even comes out, and that kind of ends up feeling like the post-game, that's going to be a little bit of an issue. I agree with that. Of course, I'm reserving my judgment until we actually see what the game has to offer, because that may not be the case. There may actually be a very full, complete experience here, and you won't be left feeling like, oh, they cut this content and saved it for DLC. It's entirely possible, especially given the extra time they put into developing this game, that the game's been complete for a while, and they then decided to start working on DLC afterwards. I also want to say, it's not like I think everything about this game has been concerning. There have been things I've seen about this game that have already been exciting, like the real-time battles. That is a new twist on the Pokemon mechanics that I'm very interested to try. Actually being able to move around your Pokemon and seeing them dodge and doing attacks in different ways, that's going to be fun. And so that brings me to some of the new information we've gotten. We got the screenshot here of the rules for linked battles. And so as translated here by Central Leaks, there are no restrictions, 6 Pokemon for normal, 6 Pokemon for casual, 3 Pokemon for normal, and 3 Pokemon for casual. These are all the different battle options. There's also a casual and normal option, and the difference between these two is that for casual, you can bring a special Pokemon. For normal, these are banned. I assume special Pokemon are like big, powerful, major legendaries. And it's also specified here that for both casual and normal, all the levels are set to 50, and you cannot use duplicate Pokemon or duplicate held items, and the battle times are 3 minutes. So the reason why this is exciting to me is because there are options for no restrictions and 6 Pokemon, not just 3. So we can have a full, complete battle here. Now, from the linked battles we've seen in Legends ZA, they are battle royales, so you fight in an environment with 3 other players. It's 4 different trainers and their Pokemon teams duking it out in a 3-minute span trying to obtain the most points, which is already a significant improvement over Legends Arceus, one of my favorite Pokemon games, that didn't have multiplayer. So simply the fact that there is some form of multiplayer in Legends ZA is certainly an improvement. But I'm very happy that they're introducing 6 Pokemon and not just 3 Pokemon you can battle with, because this means we can have more full, complete battles. And something that perhaps some people have missed, when you look at the official Legends ZA website, they talk about the Battle Club and how for the link battles, it can go up to 4 players, which means it can be less than 4 players, which implies you can have 1v1s where you can have essentially a straight up duel of 6v6. And that's important for me because I do like to enjoy that full-scale battle in a Pokemon game. Now, the concern here is the 3-minute time limit, but considering the gameplay style for Legends ZA, I don't think that's going to be that much of an issue. But that's not the extent of the new information we have to talk about today. We've actually gotten a lot of new footage from this YouTube channel, Peacockin TV, where you have these different people who were invited to play Pokemon Legends ZA, and here it's an hour-plus long video. Not all of its gameplay, but there is a lot of gameplay here, as I'll be showing here, and I'll have this video actually linked in the description below so you can see everything. But there's a lot of things here I saw that I very much enjoyed, and disclaimer, this is a 4K 60 FPS video here, and so there are things here that I thought looked really good. As I talked about earlier, I've had concerns about the visuals for Pokemon Legends ZA. And I'm not here trying to say that everything looks amazing now, but seeing the game at actually 4K at 60 FPS, which by the way, even though it was announced that the game would have these improvements for the Switch 2 edition, we would still see most of the trailers and videos at just 1080p. It was a weird choice by Pokemon Company to share the videos in this way, even though they had a higher resolution option, but now we're actually seeing some 4K footage of Legends ZA on Switch 2, and seeing the game in action. There are parts that look pretty good. There are some pretty detailed environments. The camera does come up close. There are parts that are aesthetically pleasing. Now, there are still parts where the textures are very basic and simple. There are still some aliasing issues. A lot of the buildings do still appear to be fairly flat. But overall, considering the sharpness of the resolution, how some of the textures do appear to actually look pretty good, considering the colors with the Pokemon and how they're presenting themselves, how the game changes from day to night, and seeing all the action on screen, while also running at a smooth 60 frames per second, something we haven't seen from prior Pokemon games, is certainly a nice step up from prior Pokemon experiences. There's still plenty of room for growth here, but at least elements of this game I do find visually pleasing, which has me even more excited for this experience. Like, I want to talk about this little bit of gameplay here, where we are seeing Charizard move around, seeing this model of Charizard, seeing how the light is interacting with Charizard. It looks good. I'm not saying it looks amazing, I'm not saying this looks like a next-gen experience, nothing like that, but it is aesthetically pleasing. This looks like something that is fun to play. Now, if you've gone this far into the video, I'd like to take this moment to point out that I have this goal to reach 60,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you find yourself enjoying my content, your subscription would be greatly appreciated, and thank you for watching all this time. And it's cool to see Game Freak expanding upon the gameplay they established with Legends Arceus, how we can see Pokemon chasing you down, how there's a real threat that you're feeling there. There have been reports that the game does feel fairly challenging compared to most Pokemon games, very similar to Legends Arceus, which had that extra challenge. Even during this gameplay footage, these people playing would actually lose sometimes. There was a real threat and challenge here, and we also get to see some pretty good gameplay of this raid battle with Mega Victory Bell, which, when you take a look at it, it feels like an honest-to-good boss fight. It feels like there's a real threat here. And that's something else I appreciate about what they're doing with Legends ZA. With the Mega Evolutions, with the raid battles, with the Alpha Pokemon, there are legitimate threats, there are legitimate challenges, and there are sequences that feel like actual boss fights, which is not really something we've truly been able to enjoy for pretty much every single Pokemon game. Like, yeah, you do have your legendary boss battles, but they haven't felt quite like this, where you have a massive gargantuan Pokemon in these arenas where you're duking it out and it feels like there's a legitimate threat. And so as someone who enjoys a challenge, this to me is compelling. This to me has me interested in Legends ZA. And yet there's more I want to talk about here in terms of my hope for Pokemon Legends ZA. Earlier I talked about how it doesn't look like we can enter the buildings, and I still have that concern. It may still be the case that there are many buildings you simply cannot enter. There are buildings you have seen that you can enter, so that's good, but is it like prior Pokemon games? And from what I understand, it isn't, but we'll see. However, what I have seen though, taking a look at the website, reading some of the character descriptions, there are elements here mentioned that give me hope for an experience that's going to feel a bit more complete. So reading this description for Mabel a little bit further down, researching the sudden influx of Pokemon. Mabel has a lot of research to keep up with, so she seeks your help in her investigation. As part of this research, you'll register a variety of Pokemon to your Pokedex by catching or evolving them. At times, you'll obtain Mega Stones, allowing you to register Mega Evolved Pokemon to your Mega Evolution Pokedex. Complete Mabel's research requests to earn TMs, technical machines, and other rewards. TMs teach your Pokemon moves they might not be able to learn by leveling up, which can help them become more effective in battle. That alone is not that big of a deal. This feels like kind of like a little bit of what they allowed you to do in Legends Arceus, where you were going around catching different Pokemon to complete the Pokedex and do more research and continue the expedition. But there is mention here of also capturing and registering Mega Evolutions, which I think is going to be interesting, learning more about Mega Evolutions here. Like, on the actual Pokemon website, they do also talk about the Pokemon themselves, and there is quite a bit describing the actual Mega Evolutions here. So when I go to the actual Pokemon here you see on the website, like, they have these different Mega Evolutions, and there's actually a lot of detailed explanation and descriptions about these Pokemon here. And so, on one hand, I've been actually concerned about the Mega Evolutions and them really feeling worthwhile, because in Legends ZA, we understand that there's no actual abilities, which is something that's really helped to differentiate a lot of Pokemon, including Mega Evolutions. But at the very least here, it looks like they are really harping on the improvements to their abilities from, I guess, a stat perspective, and there's a lot of detail, at least in terms of talking about how the Pokemon is different. So that's more so from a lore perspective, but it does give me some optimism here. But getting back to the bigger point I'm trying to get at here, reading this description from Emma, you'll assist Emma by tracking down missing Pokemon, locating lost items, and even taking part in the occasional Pokemon battles. Work alongside Pokemon to solve the problems of people both young and old in Lumio City. And so here they're talking about solving problems of people. And so we look at this screenshot here. Okay then, let me get right to my request. So this is a random NPC, and this looks like a side quest. So here they're talking about how there are going to be side quests in this game. It seems like they're expanding more so on this, and you're working with Emma, this detective, to solve different mysteries throughout the city. There's actually a lot of potential here, given that it is a city, kind of like a metropolis of sorts, where there's a large gathering of people, and also Pokemon. There's a lot of room here to add a lot of interesting stories and quests that could really help to fill up the world and experience. Will they? That remains to be seen, but clearly they're at least hinting at some side quests here, which gives me some optimism. And so there are some promising things we are seeing about Pokemon Legends ZA, so I'm getting excited. The game is coming out in just a few short days. It's been a while since I've played a mainline Pokemon game, since they have taken a break, and yeah, I'm ready. I plan on playing this for my Nintendo Switch too, but how do you guys plan on playing this game? And what are your feelings on what we've learned so far about Legends ZA? Do you also share my concerns, or are you perfectly content with what we've seen so far? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget, you can use my code SLEEPRESTART when checking the link in the description below for the Manta Sleep mask. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.